Now, the average asking price for rent is falling faster in Vancouver than anywhere else in Canada. Well, that's according to new figures from Rentals.ca, which says the cost is down by more than 8% year over year in this city. The province is welcoming these new numbers, even sent out a press release to draw attention to the report. But are renters actually any closer to affordable housing costs? To discuss that, we have Andy Yan with us here in studio. Andy is the director of the City program at Simon Fraser University. Hello there.
Hey, Gloria.
So let's dig into the numbers in more detail here, Andy. We're comparing the price now to the price 1 year ago. So a one-bedroom apartment is now going for about $2,500 a month. That apparently is down more than 6%. Cost of a two-bedroom, just over $3,400 a month. That's down by about 4%. What do you think of the numbers?
Well, I think that in one way you can kind of imagine this as being a signal that there is a level of success in terms of what's going on in terms of the rents lowering, whether it's really because of things like the re-regulation of short-term rental, the foreign buyers tax, the empty homes tax, that there is a certain element through which these policies could have an impact towards rents. But then I think it's really important to kind of have these numbers in context. It's really, I think, important to actually understand how these numbers were generated, that these numbers are in one way averages. And as an average, it could be affected by outliers, by, say, how many of these are, say, units that were really, really expensive that have suddenly reduced their rents. But then also at the same time, what does it really mean for your average renter? And I think that it's important to kind of note really how different what renters actually earn in metropolitan Vancouver. Remember, they earn around $75,000 a year in metropolitan Vancouver versus $126,000 a year for owners. And that really means that their affordable rent is really around, it's around $1,890, which I think really means that we're still far away from affordability.
Right. Well, it's interesting that the housing minister did send out a press release yesterday to welcome these figures. You know, Christine Boyle says the province's housing plan means that vacancy rates are rising, rents are falling. Is this something the province can take credit for?
Partial credit. That I think a lot of this is that we're still far from affordability in our time, that there are, I think, still some sizable challenges, that there have been some. I think in one way it can claim a certain level of accomplishment, but then at the same time, another reason why rents come down is because the economy isn't doing that great, that we have a certain number of, we had, I think, one estimate about 70,000 people leave British Columbia over the last year, that perhaps is another reason why, the last quarter, that it suggests another kind of reason why rents are going down, is that rents coming down is perhaps also one about policy, but it's also one about what's going on in the economy.
Right. Is there enough incentive to stay here?
Exactly. Exactly.
I see. Can I afford to keep living here?
Right.
And what do you think? I mean, with these kinds of drops, 4% here, 6% there, is that enough, you think, to make existing tenants maybe shop around for a better deal?
Not necessarily. I think that part of it is really where these drops are happening, that there's a broad spectrum of rental products that are out there now. And I think that we've also seen a lot of new rental, predominantly on the higher end, come online. But then really how well is that being taken up? And then also the kind of incentives that these landlords are now having in terms of trying to get these new but fairly expensive rentals taken up, that they've given the kind of price breaks, but then not necessarily, it doesn't mean much for the average renter, for the median renter. Right.
Well, and there may be renters listening to this right now and thinking, I'm not better off. I'm not going to move. I'm probably going to get the 2% increase that the landlord is allowed next year. But so as we're processing this data from Rentals.ca, are there caveats to be aware of?
I think so. I think that a lot of it is really talking about renters where they are and really actually indeed facing the kind of 2.5% increase that they are going to face. Really, and also really the kind of I think the kind of headwinds that are coming in towards really the state of the economy, and really how much of those winds have shaped rents, but where these rent breaks are occurring. And I have a feeling that many of these rent breaks are occurring at the higher end as opposed to the mid or the low end for renters.
The province does say that there's more to do to unlock housing that people can afford. So in that more to do category, what is possible? Do you think renters are closer now towards achieving affordable costs?
That's an interesting question. I think that part of it is still really going into policy around security of tenure. I think that some of it is really looking at, say, the rental acquisition funds that have occurred both at the provincial and the federal level. That it really is going into investing in non-market housing, because the private sector will not produce housing for certain incomes, that they just will not produce the kind of housing that certain incomes can afford. And I think that really leaves the kind of openness for both the provincial and the federal government to go into strategies and policies around that type of investment.